All right, you should be good, Dominic.
Okay, very good. I want to welcome everybody to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for August 10th, 2022. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lag.
Your hobby's gone before us.
Very good. The approval of the agenda. There's no changes in the agenda, I believe.
No change in the agenda now.
Thank you very much. Could we have a roll call, Noreen, if you're on?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
He's here. He's on the
Commissioner
phone.
Okay. Commissioner Haggerty,
Commissioner Haggerty called me. He's excused.
okay. Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Commissioner Lenars gave me a call too. He had a business thing that he had to take care of. Thank you.
okay. Yep, Commissioner Trister,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Braverman,
Here.
Commissioner Droz,
Here.
Commissioner Gill,
Here.
all set.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have, we can sit both alternates, I think, for this meeting, right?
You good?
We can sit Commissioner Gill for Commissioner Lenars and Commissioner Droz for,
Haggerty?
thank you, Commissioner Haggerty. Thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda. There's nothing else. We'll go to public participation. If there's anybody online that would like to pick something up, if you're within the Zoom application, raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized. Use *6 when recognized by speak by telephone. And if you could state your name and address for the record, we'd appreciate it. Is there anybody online?
There's no one online.
Okay, if there's no objection, we'll move on to the next thing, which is our zoning enforcement officer's report. Everybody received a report from the zoning officer. Does any commissioners have any questions for the zoning enforcement officer?
I can also report on, some of you are probably aware, we started enforcement action at 260 Stam Road last week. We took 10 vehicles out last week. We took 3 earlier this week. And I believe we're going to be heading back out at some point next week as well. We were also located another 20 to 30 vehicles he has on another property on Stam Road that he was stashing. So we're working on that one as well.
Very good, thank you, Eric. Any other questions for the zoning enforcement officer? Very good. Thank you very much, Eric. Any remarks from commissioners? Hearing none, we have no public hearing tonight. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of July 27, 2022. Entertain a motion. So moved.
Chairman Payne, I was not present for that meeting.
Okay. That's all right. You could just state that when we take a vote. That'd be fine.
I'm sorry. No, I'm talking about on the approval of the minutes. It's got me as present.
Okay. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Havens. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr.
Second
Chairman.
by Commissioner Woods. Now discussion of the minutes. If we could have a correction for next meeting that Commissioner Droz was not at the last meeting, so this will be approval with that correction.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next thing on the agenda is our new business. We have a Greater Hartford Mobility Study. Maybe a short report from staff.
Sure, just quickly, I put a hard copy of just some general thoughts that we had that the TPZ would like to pass on at some point. Mike has a bit of a presentation as well that he's put together. He drafted up these recommendations, and I kind of reviewed them, and I agree. I think these are the high points that the commission would like to see. And after the meeting, if you guys have other comments, whenever, we can add them to the memo, and we'll put the memo out to James so he can put it in council's packet for their review at some future time. Hopefully we'll have some, this will be done tonight, and you'll have a memo.
So just to add, I went through, there were like hundreds of recommendations, and it's hard to boil them down in a way that makes sense if you're looking at just one town or for just one thing. So I went through everything, and we pulled out the ones that applied directly to Newington or were more of a policy statement, like support complete streets or mass transit, et cetera. And I just put those into the table, which you all have. So that's not everything, but I think if we're sort of trying to get the ball rolling on developing some formalized comment, the people can go on individually and make comments on other things as individual members or residents, but trying to comment as a commission, we're trying to come up with some thoughts which maybe you could completely disagree with, and that would be great because at least we'd have thoughts one way or another. But I put some staff comments in one column, which you'll see just to, again, explain some of our thoughts. And then the memo, which Eric distributed with, I think, today's date, are just some, as Eric mentioned, high points of things that we think should at least be touched upon. They might not be everything you want to comment on, and we can add or subtract to that list, but I think it touches upon the key points that the mobility study as a whole is trying to sort of examine.
These are just recommendations and comments that they've come up, developed. There's no hard and fast plans or funding for any of this stuff yet. So I think they're looking to see what towns are looking for in the general area to support some of this stuff. So, we don't know if you guys have any other comments. We can certainly add them, or
I can go through what I included in the bullets and kind of explain the thought process if you want, or, okay.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
you're
So
welcome to share if you want to bring it.
would it be better that way? People could see it. Okay. We'll do that.
They have it in front of them and they can look up.
Share. Yes. Good. Boot you off.
Yep.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Maybe.
There we go. Okay. So the first comment, the commission considers Route 175 a significant priority, both for improved pedestrian safety, but also for traffic volume. The TPZ would strongly prefer to be involved in any discussions and or plan considerations for any alterations to this corridor or to adjacent roadways, including Route 9, Route 15, that could result in changes to traffic. I remember when CROG did a study in 2014. They identified the most viable route for bicycles going east to west was Cedar Street, right? Because the data said go Cedar Street. Well, you don't, if you drive Cedar Street, you know that not be the case. So the point to this comment is we want to know anything and everything. We don't want you to make any decisions or imply and take any implied thoughts that we have. We want to, other towns have done this. You probably have heard about Middletown and sort of the idea with the lights. They've been very vocal about that and have rejected 2 DOT plans that they've tried to roll out. So if the commission sort of unified, or the town, in wanting to know these things, I think it's a way to get in front of those before they've got some 70% drawing that they're asking for support on. As a community, second one, as a community with multiple fast track stations, the TPZ is in support of any assistance that could be made available for mid to high density mixed use transit oriented development. That was a specific statement made as one of the alternatives. It was support for mid to high density. So we're not making the statement that you're in support of only mid and high density. That is the alternative proposed. And again, it's just any regional support that they're going to provide to a developer or to a town for technical expertise, market analysis, whatever that looks like. We're suggesting that we would be in support of anything they were willing to assist with. The third comment, as a town that sees just 1% of its working population make use of public transportation, and with over 30% of those commuting, traveling to places other than the city of Hartford, the TPZ would encourage increased availability to transit options to other major employment centers. So based upon pre-COVID data, Newington residents are going to Farmington, they're going to West Hartford, they're going to Berlin, they're going to East Hartford. Those are probably your major ones once you pull out local and Hartford. Obviously UConn Health, UConn Farmington, that's a major employment center, and East Hartford with Pratt. So anything that allows people to make use of that, because currently 1% of those working use public transit, would reduce traffic on Cedar Street, reduce traffic on the Berlin Turnpike. It's sort of a snowball. While a specific route has not been presented, the commission supports regional efforts to establish greenway corridors that can further connect communities and provide access to recreational opportunities. One of the things they've suggested very preliminarily is a sort of a greenway that gets us from here to Weathersfield Cove. They don't talk about locations or parcel acquisition. That's obviously complicated, but that is seen now as an amenity, obviously access to recreation, active recreation, for biking and walking and anything that connects communities, which you can't really get to very easily, to me seem like something the commission would support. So last, the commission is in strong support of any initiatives or physical roadway improvements that contribute to reducing traffic congestion and increasing safety, convenience, and usability for bicycle and pedestrian users. So a couple of things they have here: complete streets, pedestrian, amenities, whether it be protected crosswalks or whatever. I wanted to be clear again, we're in favor of these things, or in theory, but the key is reducing traffic congestion. So we don't want to double the time it takes to drive east to west on Cedar Street in the name of a very low used pedestrian amenity, because that's going to create more safety issues. So this is just sort of like setting the table. We can take them all off the list. We can add just to get things started.
Very good. I think you hit on some great things here. And I think one of the most important things you said at the beginning was that no matter what happens, I think the people at this table and the council want an opportunity to sit at the table with them when they make these decisions, so we can have input, so that we're doing the right thing for the town. Any other comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reading through it kind of seems like the state's asking us to take the lead, right? Not necessarily will they fund what we want to do, but they want us to be behind the project. And then if there's enough support and they feel it's the feasibility of it is capable on their end, then they might move it forward. Kind of what I'm reading through all this, because there's too many options here. Obviously, this all can't happen. Right? And then some of it, if it did happen, it's not going to achieve the goals that they're looking to do. And one of yours is pedestrian traffic on Cedar Street. But I suppose it could be done. It could be done safely, but the cost is going to be astronomical.
The cost and the timeline is.
And then land would need to be taken from homeowners, and I'm not against any of this, but it kind of sounds like to me, and I'm only speaking for myself, but we really need to kind of find a project, get behind it, maybe not one, maybe two or three, and try to sell it to the state. And if we have 3 or 4 and we get 1 or 2, maybe that is the direction that we move in. But we need to work in conjunction with the council, and the other land use boards.
Yep, excellent point. I think we are presently working on possibly getting some grants for sidewalks for the Newington Junction area, possibly. I'm not sure. But that area of Newington Junction is missing sidewalks from West Hartford to Newington. And, you know, some of the people on that end of West Hartford might want to use the junction busway. So I think making that junction, Newington Junction, more pedestrian friendly would be something that we should go after. And I'm not sure if we've attempted to do that yet or not.
Certainly, last point, really more to Eric or Michael. Do we know is AR Properties, was that the Cedar Street Station? AR Property, are they moving forward? Do we know? Is there any
I'm
discussion?
not aware of anything,
You are not aware. Okay,
of anything for location of train stations or funding from the state.
okay. So we do have an approved site plan for the site, but it has not gotten.
I don't even know if there's an approved.
What are you talking about now?
The parks. At the,
Cedar Street?
yeah,
They're moving forward.
not Dakota, at the,
Newington Junction?
yeah,
Newington Junction is moving.
no, I'm
forward.
sorry, not Newington Junction, Cedar Street. So Cedar Street.
The old
at-
Weldon.
at the-
Oh, the National
old
Welding.
site, National
Oh,
Welding.
okay. So the town hasn't closed on the property with the developer yet. He's finalizing the Mylars that you guys approved. So
That's moving forward.
that's moving forward, yes. And he has, I believe, because it was state funded cleanup and whatever, the state kind of twisted his arm a bit. I think he has 10% affordable units for 10 years or something like that.
If I may.
Mhm.
And the hotel is still moving forward as far as you know?
They applied for their building permits
Okay.
and they have the plans in review, but that's been like 4 months and
Yeah.
it's just kind of stagnant.
Well, and you know, the cost of building materials, and you can't blame anybody for dragging their feet right now. I fully understand that.
Exactly.
So again, my opinion, Mr. Chairman, is maybe we concentrate at the Cedar Street station. There's the most development there. Plus we know Cedar Street itself is a nightmare. Maybe we work really hard with the state to try to find a solution to make it safer and slower, if at all possible.
So something that I think dovetails with all of these comments, which I think the commission should think about making a stronger statement on, because to your point, yeah, a list of 100 alternatives is a plan to make nothing happen, right? So two things here which can have significant impacts and will also be significant time, engineering, and expense, which are on the alternatives list, which I didn't provide comment on because I don't pretend to know how the commission feels, is the evaluation or investigation of a Newington rail station for the Hartford line. And what they call the Newington East-West connection, which is a connection between Fenn Road and Alumni, which are basically that flyover so those are two things which are obviously very large transformative type projects, which I haven't proposed comment on. If the commission's in support of those strongly either way or has opinions, we should make it clear so that, yeah, hopefully more eggs go into those baskets.
That's the one that I have, earmarked here is, it seems very important and could be, if it was funded, it would make an impact. But I would want them to look into increasing that to Willard Avenue instead of just to Alumni Road. And also at the same time, where do we sit at the intersection of Maple Hill and Alumni and Cedar? Is that intersections is?
So there's been talk, there's the town engineer through some grants has applied for grants for sidewalks and streets, and one of his grants included relocating that intersection, making it like it was supposed to be 20 years ago or whatever. And at this point, I don't know that it's been approved at this point, and they were coming up with alternatives. They were working with the state on an alternative for a right in, right out only on Alumni and Cedar, either putting in some kind of traffic control device or something. And again, I don't know where they are in the process with that. That was the last discussion I heard, waiting to see what happens with the grant and potential funding, because even if we get the grant, it's a big chunk of change and it's probably a few years out.
The rotary that was talked about at Fenn Road and Route 9, that area there, is that looking to tie into this? this loop here or?
The proposal that they have is not specific. It's a blue line on a Google map that just shows approximately where it would go. They haven't really leaned into the type of infrastructure or any of the engineering. And I don't know how those line up, but it would seem to me that if you came across Alumni, you'd probably be further north than where El Grasso comes down, probably closer to the Milk Lane.
Yeah, I think it comes out to closer to Holly, or actually, it might be close. Because the intention, the old thought and plan, which I've, been kicked around, is before you make the bend on Alumni, is just extend it straight through to Fenn or hook it up somehow with El Grasso. But now we've had, Mr. Hayes has developed property in that area, so it's kind of, they're gonna have to really chicane it or something that, who knows how it's gonna work, if they even, and that would seem, environmentally, it's all wetlands in there.
Almost impossible.
And that's gonna have to go through the state level first.
They're gonna be putting tunnels in Hartford. I mean. It's, now, was there ever any looking at putting a train station in that area?
No idea what they
behind
discussed.
Alumni?
No.
I'm not aware of that.
That's intriguing though.
No. Commissioner Rhodes?
Just a quick question, maybe a clarification, not really sure. I know Commissioner Woods mentioned, funding and that type of thing and feeling things out. In regards to funding, looking on the first page of what we had been given as far as for the study, please note that these alternatives are not yet defined projects with funding and sponsors. Many of these alternatives will be advanced by entities other than Connecticut DOT, including by yourselves and CROG. Please provide your feedback, understanding that some of these projects within your city or town may ultimately be advanced by you. Am I reading that wrong, or does it really sound like we're talking about a lot of stuff that we might end up paying for?
I'm sure part is gonna be, if some of it's through CROG, so there'd be some relief grant money there, potential grant money. But yeah, it sounds like the state is like, hey, here's all these great projects, town. What do you like? Okay, ready to pay
Go
for
do
them?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
For example, a recent grant opportunity that was kind of being discussed internally was the Safe Streets for All, which is it was released a number of months ago. One of the things it requires is an action plan. It requires the town to identify what you want to do, what's a priority, and the costs. They'll kick in whatever it was, 90%. It's a significant match. But a lot of these things now, with all the federal money and infrastructure and all this stuff that you're hearing about, they want to see that the town has a plan. They've already built consensus. They're committed to the project. And they're not just trying to get some other entity to do it.
Mhm.
So by identifying the priorities, we then score higher for that funding if we decide we want it, but we can't fund, this is tens of millions of dollars of improvements that really, not a huge mechanism for that to happen regionally or even at the state level.
So we're basically just looking to narrow down a focus for what we're looking for, talk it up. And then-
there will be competition with other towns for some of this funding as well. So even if we identify 3 great projects, like Commissioner Woods pointed out, we may only get 1.
Right. Okay.
Commissioner Gill?
Page 60, operational improvements of Route 175. What is multi-model facilities?
Oh, multimodal. It just includes all users. So it's handicap accessible, pedestrian, bicycle. It's not just a sidewalk for a pedestrian. It's making sure they're wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair, or that you have bicycle facilities so people that are riding their bike to an area have a place to park it. Includes anyone coming to the site.
Right, and interacting with vehicular traffic as well to make sure that they're safe, so it's modal, like you said, different modes of transportation.
Okay. The freight rail, I mean, was there anything in the Newington area would that be earmarked towards, or?
That was bridges.
I'm not sure, honestly.
I thought I had read in there that most of the tracks were beefed up to be able to take rail traffic, freight rail traffic.
Oh,
But it's the bridges which were the holdup, and they actually weren't anywhere near us as far as it had mentioned in there a couple of bridges that had weaknesses as far as to take freight.
so as far as a new rail station, now is that were we zeroing in on Cedar Street or is?
We haven't chosen anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Okay.
and the reason we haven't talked about it is because there's no funding for it.
Right.
Okay.
We've improved the, not to interrupt you, we've improved a massive improvement on the fence, Fenn and Cedar Street TOD area. And I think Commissioner Woods is correct. If we can make that safer, more pedestrian friendly and improve that, and then also possibly come up with our TOD regulations for the Newington Junction, then maybe we'll be able to energize some
Right, that gives you,
development over in that area too.
because there still is, on my Racone Way, there still is one parcel available, it's just on the other side of the car wash. It's very small. I don't know what potentially could be there, but there is a parcel available. So,
Gas station at one point and he abandoned it.
yeah, they were gonna do a Stop and Shop gas station there and then.
Yeah.
Pulled out, so.
Okay. All right, yeah. So that's any other commissioners' comments?
Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead, Commissioner Woods.
I mean, there's some great ideas on here, but like the Newington East-West connection, which I think is fantastic, but that was floated about 10, 12 years ago. I mean, DOT flatly threw it out. So it really surprises me to see that that's back on the table. I think it is one good solution to help relieve traffic on Cedar Street and Willard Avenue. You knock off 2 with 1 to get people onto Route 9. It does build up traffic, obviously, on Fenn Road. Very little, there is now some additional residential homes on Fenn Road where they weren't 10, 12 years ago, I think it is, or maybe it's 15 years now. The house has been there. I lose track of time. But I think that, again, I think we need to sit down with somebody from DOT instead of spinning our wheels on something that they're not going to even think about funding or pushing forward. We need to get a little bit more direction on, you know, is it the rail station? You know, if the town can get behind a rail station at either Newington Junction or Cedar Street, would they support it? You know, I think we need to get some sort of commitment because the list is too long, just in this one town. I think we're just going to be chasing our tails.
I mean, we can certainly, you know, we can make that as a bullet point that, hey, we'd like to meet with DOT to see what they're, you know, we can add that in here as a comment. So, or we can make it the first comment and then we can just bump everything else down one and kind of go like that. So that way it goes to council, they see it, they see what you guys want and you guys build a consensus of
And I'm not
sorts.
saying that it's us that starts it off either. You know, maybe it is
Right.
recommended to whoever the appropriate body is or appropriate people to sit down with DOT to try to start that dialogue, to at least give us an idea or to channel it in. Because we're still, as I said last meeting, we're at 80 to 100,000 feet here. We need to get it down. We need to have some sort of direction where we can move forward and because we do, you know, we have both of our bus stops that have not been fully developed, and we're working on one, and we made a lot of work on one, and we're starting on the second. So it's not like we're not doing anything, but you know, if we knew that a rail station was coming to Newington Junction, now all of a sudden you can go out to developers. We've got something to sell.
Right. Get our overlay district done and everything else for that area. Yeah, that's obviously that's a big nut, so to speak.
We do have a bus stop, so it's a plus, but you throw a rail station on it, and again, we have to look that, yes, 1%, you know, of our population, and I believe that's probably a true statement, but we need to start thinking bigger, right? If this rail station actually came in, now you're attracting people who might be working in New York, you know, downstate. So we're going to attract a whole different
Potentially a station at Newington Junction. Also, revitalizes Day Street area, as well with that industrial manufacturing, warehousing, whatever it is, or whatever future potential is there.
Yeah, maybe it goes from like it is industrial now to more of a high tech,
Yeah, if it's a rail stop, and somebody can easily hop off the train and go to work.
But that's it. I'm
Yeah,
I'm going all night long.
No, I agree with you, Commissioner Woods. I have no problem adding something like that to this Greater Hartford Mobility Study. Anybody have any objections? Is there anybody else that have anything else?
You want me to see if Mr. Claffey would like to,
Yes.
has any?
Actually,
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
wouldn't want these comments to be misconstrued by, not the people of the Greater Hartford Mobility Study or the state, but by the people of the town. That it seems like we're pushing, Newington Junction for a train station as opposed to Cedar Street for a train station, or even a train station. These are just all things that are being discussed. We're looking at the big picture. We're not making decisions on a location right now.
And we can put that in there. We're not recommending any location
This
for a
way,
rail
people don't hear
station.
that and say, oh my God,
It's a little hot topic right now.
Great point.
That's a really good point. But again, back to my point, and I'll stick with the rail stations, right? So if the state's got absolutely no plans on putting one in Newington Junction, okay, that's fine. Then the town decides, do you want Cedar Street or no one? And we get to decide that.
Right.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, but I just don't want it to seem like
We're,
what we're saying now, we're angling for one or the other.
I've been trying to take notes because I want to kind of make sure we have some consensus so that we can get these comments to the council. So for the east-west connection, would you agree that sort of the group sentiment was that the idea in theory is a good concept? It would alleviate traffic and provide all of those things that you discussed, but that basically requires, it's impractical in that it requires significant engineering, and there's a number of environmental constraints and obviously costs associated. So while the commission's supportive of the idea, it's too early to the project, it's too early to sort of endorse this alternative because we don't have a DOT supported plan. And reaffirm that we would like to be part of the conversation from the beginning. And then for the rail station, part of what we've talked about is that we can't continue to support or even consider mass transit when we don't have the low-level pedestrian facilities to get people to and from. Can't have a train station with no way for people to get there. And that if a station were to be created, essentially what we're talking about is what they've envisioned for other places where you have basically a cross-platform facility where they can get on and off. And so I think maybe what the thought here should be is that the town is supportive of a study to determine the viability of a train station in the location. The alternative presented by the study doesn't identify where. It just says in Newington. So maybe the town needs to support this study so that they can decide this is not a good idea, or that it belongs at Newington Junction because people can go from bus to train. I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to figure out where everybody stands.
What's the time frame on this? When do we have to have something to this mobility study?
Well, I believe what we're looking for here, is we're looking to get comments that we can get the council for their meeting next week so they can move forward with whatever, council's going to have their own input, their own thoughts, but I'm sure they're going to review your recommendations and, maybe they'll strike out. Somebody's like, I don't know, we don't care, but hey, these three we really like, just like you said, we're narrowing the focus.
Yeah.
I don't know what the true deadline is per se.
I don't know why I have September in my head, but.
Okay. And
It's
that
not
makes
on the
sense
website.
because, a couple weeks before it's due, council wants the option to look at it.
I think the Newington Junction, whether there's a train station there or not, I think we would all be in agreement that we want to improve the pedestrian, the bicyclists, and parking for the existing busway that we have there.
Right.
So whether down the road a train stop comes there
Or it doesn't.
or it doesn't really matter because we want to improve the busway that we existingly have there.
Right.
I think.
You want, yeah, yes, improve the viability of the area, the walkability, everything else about it. I mean, because you're still having, buses stop there. So, you have people coming, going the multi-use trail. So,
Mhm.
Do either of the things that I mentioned seem like something I should include, or no? We don't want to, okay.
I don't have a problem with those. No objections? Thank you, Mike.
And we can make it clear that we're not saying things should go in any one place. We're not identifying a location. We'll make that very, very clear for everyone.
Commissioner Claffey, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Mr. Claffey.
I agree. I kind of agree with the whole discussion. I think it's been a great discussion. I agree, with what Chairman Payne had just said. I think we need to focus maybe on that pedestrian aspect. The state's come in recently and put all the new lights in and new crosswalks over up and down our community. And, someone said earlier in the meeting, the Willard to, Fenn Road, there's parts where you can't connect pedestrian, bikeway, or anything between the two of those. So, I would say let's see if there's some way with that east-west, like Commissioner Woods has said, it's a journey that we're going to undertake, but I think we have to push that more so it coincides with how you can come down Cedar on your bike or walk, but then you get to Willard, and after Willard, you take your life in your hands to get down to Fenn Road. So that's really where I think we have to spend some time and let the council know that we want to make that more user-friendly for the residents and also the passerbys. That's really all I have after looking at all these options. I think my last point, I think on the rail, it sounds over the years we've beaten this rail station to death, and I think there's other things we can spend on in the meantime until, like you all have said, get in a room with the people that said, hey, if you do this, there's a better chance you get to the next step to closer to rail. Those are my comments. That's all I have. I think it was a great presentation. Thank you, Mike D'Amato, for that.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Claffey. Any other comments? All right. Thank you very much, Mike and Eric.
So what we got is Michael draft a couple of these other comments into this memo, and we'll get it out. So council will have it available at their next meeting.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, there's no old business. Not sure if you have anything to discuss. We only have one thing for the public hearing
Public
scheduling.
hearing at the next meeting, that's for the new Chase Bank that's going in, or the Webster Bank was at the Deming. They want to put up their own freestanding sign. There is one currently on the site, but because it is a corner lot, by special permit, they are allowed to have another one. So that's what we'll be applying for. So you'll hear that at the next meeting.
All right, do you have anything under town planner's report?
No, we're also, Mike is working on the, as previously discussed, the tent sale special permit thing, so we can kind of get that special permit aspect out of it and just
Administratively?
on a small scale. Larger scale ones would still get your review as a site plan, I think, or.
Yeah, it's two-tiered so that the smaller stuff doesn't need to come to the commission. But, there've been significant events, restaurants on the turnpike and others, which really need a higher level of review. At this point, trying to create administrative criteria that they need to meet, you don't want to be issuing special permits for things we don't have to because they run with the land. And then it's, we'd rather have them issue it and have it expire so we can bring them back every time. But we've got to create very clear criteria to say it meets it or it doesn't. But that's the approach.
Anybody have any questions? Any other communications?
I think that's it right now.
All right, if there's no objection, we'll go to public participation. If the public within Zoom application, you want to raise your hand if you'd like to participate during the public participation. Gail?
I can go get the mic if I need to. It had been out. It was discharged. So I just put it on the charger. Okay.
Feel free for 112 Terrace. Just want to make some comments just in general, I guess, about development, since I really can't address what was on the agenda. But first of all,
You can address anything you want.
I do believe that, well, the Greater Hartford Mobility is coming to the town council simply as a request, because I had heard the presentation here, and I just thought it would be interesting for them. So it's not like we're going to be looking at what you recommended or in favor of, and then we're going to be voting on it, saying yes or no. I mean, my interpretation from what Renata and what the mobility study said is that they really kind of dropped the ball a bit on getting input from the impacted towns and whatever. So they're kind of like scrambled, back. See, now the TPZ has made, rather than going on as individual members of the public to make your comments, you decided to do a collaborative type of comment. I'm not sure what the council is going to do, quite frankly. I'm not sure whether at this point it's worth the town of Newington coming forward and saying this is what we approve, this is what we do not approve of, because from what I understand is that they're finalizing the recommendations and going to DOT at the end of the year. And then once DOT reviews and evaluates where they want to go forward, then they're going to go back to the impacted towns and say, hey, what do you think, whatever. So this is not like a final. This is not a final list. I mean, something they can cut, something not. But number one. Number two is one thing that, and I know these are very, very high level, but I really think one thing we need to be cognizant of as a community, and I don't see that necessarily here, or I think Newington has to be very careful of, is the impact of wetlands and open space. This past month, I mean, other communities, particularly down south and the Midwest, well, even in Connecticut, the flash flooding and the drainage issues, whatever. The storms that we're getting now are not abnormalities. We're going to be getting more and more of them. And knock on wood, Newington still has, we're blessed. I don't think we're getting an awful lot of flash flooding and drainage. But the more that we start impacting our wetlands and building and taking away the and building more impervious surfaces, the more I think we're low. We have a very old the MDC system is old. We're going to be very, unless we start paying attention to that, we are going to be subject to drainage and flooding issues. So some of these projects that impact our town, for example, possibly the train stations or the overpass from Alumni Road to Fen Road. We have to be careful if that's done, the impact to wetlands. I mean, we really can't disturb them that much more because we're right at the cusp right now. So that seems to be something that is kind of missing from this, as well as impact, to open space, if taking away any kind of open space. Newington needs to be very cognizant of that and anything that's going forward. And another thing, interesting article I read today was how a lot of these higher density projects that developers are developing, both in Connecticut or just within the East Coast, they're creating what they call heat islands. And the more high density concrete jungles or developments that we create and taking away the trees or open space, whatever, it's an impact to people's health. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It is impacting people's health. And I think that's something, again, as a community, it's nice to think about, developing high rise, economic impact, whatever. But we're at a cusp where I think there's a danger if we don't take these environmental constraints or impacts into consideration, we could be shooting ourselves in the foot.
Great points, Gail. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else on line that would like to participate in public participation?
There's no one else in the room.
No objection. We'll move to remarks by commissioners. I want to thank everybody. I think we had a very good meeting. Thanks, staff. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion made. All those in favor? Aye.
we are adjourned.
7:46.
Did we get paid for an hour or?
We still get paid for an hour.